Hello people, and welcome to my August wrap-up, where I talk about all the books that I read this month and just the books. I don't know where I was going with that. Alright, real quick before we start, some statistics for August. So, in August I read 16 books. My year total so far is 164 books, which I am able to listen to books while I'm at work. So a lot of them are audiobooks that I listen to. So that number without work would probably be closer to like 70 books that I read this year, but I also am a quick reader, so. The average rating I gave this month was 3.43 stars, and I read 15 new books this month and had one reread. Compared to last year where like it was about even, or even like more rereads than new books. So I'm glad that I'm like getting back into reading new books because that's fun. And I had 4 5 stars this month. One of them was a reread and 3 were new books. So the first book that I read this month was like actually not a book, it was a novella by Sarah M. Eden. This was called The Brit and the Bridesmaid, which is the first book in her like Sweet Treats novellas series, where she has, it actually is featured in, I think, this book right here. Can you see? You can't see. Yes, you can. Right here, in this book right here, has that one in there, but I didn't realize that I owned it, otherwise I wouldn't have read it, because it was like a Kindle exclusive thing where it's like, I have these on Kindle and I have Kindle Unlimited, so I was like, oh sure, why not, I should read them. And then I realized it was in that anthology, which I own, and I could have just read the anthology, so whatever, I'll read the anthology later. But I did read the novella and it was cute. I liked it. It wasn't anything special. I sometimes really love her novellas, but this one was just like so it was 3.5 stars because it was good, but it wasn't like, didn't wow me. Then I read Dancing Shoes by Noelle Straightfield. I don't know how to pronounce that name, but this book was like a young adult, not young adult. It was like straddling the line between grade school, middle school, and young adults. Like you could read it through any of those and enjoy it. And I even kind of enjoyed it at my age. The writing was still good. My problem with this book, I did rate it 1 star, was that it did not have a good moral. Like this little girl, so basically the plot of the story is this little girl and her sister's mom die, and so their relation who owns a dancing school takes them in and is like, I'll teach y'all how to do dancing. And one of the sisters is being trained to be a ballerina, and so she's like, yeah, I get to do dancing. And the other sister's like, I don't like dancing, I don't want to do this. On her deathbed, the mom told the oldest sister, that the youngest sister needs to keep doing dancing, and it's her job to make sure she does dancing, like the correct dancing, like ballerina dancing, not like, what is it called when you do like cheer and like kicks and line work, that sort of a thing. So the youngest daughter, she likes to do the line work kicking. She doesn't like to do the hard ballerina stuff. She likes to do the fun fluffy stuff, and she's good at it because she likes doing it. But the older sister is like, no, you have to do what mom wants you to do. So the entire book is just the little daughter girl getting to do whatever she wants, and the older one facing this crippling guilt that she's failing the thing that her mom wanted her to do on her deathbed. It's also so heartbreaking because like the last thing that's like told is like, oh, people should do their own things and you were wrong to try to make her do this the whole time. And it's like, no, that wasn't the point of this book. The point of the book was the fact that she was trying to do what her mom told her to do. Why wouldn't someone tell her that, like, no, what your mom asked you to do was kind of not right of her. Your sister's okay to do whatever she wants, like, and you can do whatever you want to. Like, why didn't one tell her that? They just said, you were wrong to try to force her to do that. There's more to the plot if you did end up wanting to read it. It would have been a fine book without that moral. Like, I would have decently enjoyed this book without that moral, but because of that, bottom of the pyramid, 1 star. Alright, the next book I read this month was Being 16 by Ali Condi. This is a reread, 5 stars. This is the only reread I did this month, and it was because I wanted to finish out my reread of all of her books, her yearbook series. It was wonderful, as always. This one isn't technically part of the yearbook series, but in my brain it is, because it's taking place with similar characters in a similar setting with similar themes. This one follows a middle child who gets on the basketball team and her sister who's on the cheer squad. And it follows the older sister. She suffers a crisis of faith. Like, she doesn't know what she's doing. She doesn't have this clear picture in her mind of her life anymore. And her younger sister's battle with an eating disorder. And it is such a good book. Like, every time I think about an eating disorder, it's kind of like, oh, I don't want to read a book with that, because as a woman, I can sometimes get like triggered by that sort of a thing. But in this book, it's done in such a good way that doesn't glorify it. It doesn't make it a good thing, but it also doesn't like terrify me. Like, when I read this book when I was younger, it didn't terrify me into like, oh no, I could get an eating disorder at some point. It just was like, yeah, people get it sometimes, but you're able to like heal and get through it. And so for that reason, I love this book so much. I also there's so many quotes in this book and scenes that just stick out to me, and it was really good to reread this month actually. So 5 stars. I highly recommend this book. It does take place within my faith, so the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So there are some parts that would be kind of confusing to someone not in my church, but it is a good book. Like, it's a really good book. I highly recommend this one. Then I listened to The Dark is Rising by Susan Cooper. I decided I'm going to listen to this series because I don't think I'm going to take the time to like physically read the books. Number one, they're like rather small print. And number two, after reading the second book, I don't know if I want to continue this series. Like, I read the first book, I think I rated it like 3 stars or something. I didn't mind it. I rated this one 2.75 stars because the first book is this like action adventure story where you're going on a quest to find a thing, and it's these kids going on a quest to find a thing, and it kind of feels vaguely like Narnia, that kind of like olden time British speaking, but it's not quite Narnia because there's more modern stuff in it. And it was interesting. I liked the first one. And then this one is a complete 180, and it's Narnia still kind of vibes, but it's like completely different because it's this kid who wakes up in this random place and then stuff happens and you don't understand, and then by the time you finally understand something, you're thrown into something else. So you like never feel caught up in the story. You never understand what's going on at any point in time. You only understand retroactively. And this little kid is so confused the whole time and doesn't know what's going on, and there's all these like terrible, horrible things going on, and like it's just kind of overwhelming. This book is like, I'm probably going to continue the series because I own it, but like it was so weird and random. It was a complete tonal shift. Like, if this was just the thing that I signed up for, I'd be like, sure, whatever. But because the first book was such a completely different tonal story than this one, it was bizarre. And it wasn't a bad book by any means, but it just was so confusing to me mentally that like I can't rate it higher because I'm like, I don't know, this wasn't what I signed up for, but it was fine. Alright, then I listened to Nothing Like the Movies by Lynn Painter. This is the second book in the Better Than the Movies duology, I guess. And I think I rated the first book like 3 stars or 4 stars, something like that. I didn't rate it super high. I read it like last year, listened to it last year. I didn't love that it had a ton of swearing in it, and it had like mentions of, I think it was drug usage or cigarettes or something with teenagers, which always kind of wigs me out. I don't love it when books have underage drinking and that sort of thing. I don't think it's good to glorify that for teenagers, and I just don't enjoy swearing, specifically in YA romances. This one didn't feel like a YA romance to me, and it had so much swearing, like so much swearing. I honestly couldn't stand the swearing. It was so annoying, but the story was pretty much exactly what was going on in my own life at the time, but just like a different ending. So if you don't know, this follows a girl who goes to college, and her boyfriends, I don't want to say too much because it'll kind of spoil the first book, but like something happens with her boyfriend and now they're not together, and it's like the story of them coming back together and becoming friends, or maybe more. And it was so good to read and so hard to read, and it was happening at the exact perfect time for me in my own personal life, and I would have rated it 5 stars if it didn't have that much swearing in it. I rated it 4.75 stars, and I'm highly considering buying the book and blanking out all the swearing because I love the story and it really helped me at the time that I really needed to, but it just had swearing, so much swearing. Like, the first book I think had 10-15 swear words in it, and this one had at least 25, 30, 50 maybe. Like, so much swearing. It was a lot, and I don't like listening to swearing either, so it was, I don't know. Anyway, that's my opinion. That's my rating. Then I read Daisy Hates, which is the second book in the Magnolia Park series by Jessa Hastings. This one I ended up rating 2 stars. I think I rated Magnolia Parks 4 stars because I loved Magnolia as a character. Was she ditzy? Yes, that's why I loved her. I didn't love Daisy as a character. I liked Christian. I didn't love much else in this book. Like, I know a lot of people are like, I don't really care about Christian, but like, I did like him. He was fine. I liked him finally admitting that he had feelings, and I liked the very end of the book. I'm not gonna ruin that, but I liked the end of the book. It's hard for me to read about a character who's more okay with being sexually active than I am, which is just, it's not a thing that I do. I don't enjoy it. I don't really enjoy reading about someone who's okay with it. I don't like being in the mind space of someone who's more okay with that than I am. It's kind of weird. It's like, you know, when you read a book and it's like a serial killer and you're like, I don't want to be thinking through the head of a serial killer, but because you're reading it from their lens, you start to think like them. At least I do. And so I don't really enjoy reading stuff from things that I don't mentally align with. I'm fine with like slightly different, like just a different perspective on life, but like something I don't agree with like wigs me out. I don't really enjoy it, but it was fine. Also, this book has swearing, violence, sex, gang stuff, probably drinking. I forgot to write that down. It's not underage drinking, just drinking. It was a lot of stuff in this book, and I don't know how I felt about it really, but I know I didn't really like it more than 2 stars, but I didn't hate it. So it wasn't a 1 star. So I don't know. Take my review as you will. That's all I got for you. I don't know if I'm going to continue the series. I think I want to read the next Magnolia Parks book because I do like Magnolia Parks, but I just don't know if I'm ready for it right now. I think I might have to pick it up at a different time. I don't know. I don't think this was the right book to read when I was anxious too. I don't think I gave it the best rating and the most of myself mentally because I was just so anxious. So all right, then I listened to The Wish Swit by Lynn Painter also. Wow, I just realized I've read 2 Lynn Painter books this month. I didn't realize that. I ended up rating this one 3.5 stars. This was a cute middle grade rom-com. I think I would have loved it if I read it in that age range, but as it is, especially as an audiobook, some of that vocal acting was a little overmuch. The main character and her friends like to go squee a lot, and the person who was doing the audiobook did that also, which is good for her. Good that she was doing a really good impression of a middle grader, but it was a lot to listen to. And I didn't love the ending, I'm gonna be honest, but I understand why she did it that way because it was a middle grade book. This book is kind of like, what's it called when they have magical realism? Yeah, magical realism, where it's like a magical element in the real world. And it follows a girl and her friends who, there's like this thing that her grandma told her about that's like this wish hole with like a fae realm. And you can wish once every 4 years, I think, or something like that. Maybe it's 14. And this was the last year that you could ever do wishes because of some magical prophecy thing. I don't know. I won't go too in depth because I don't really remember and I don't really care. But anyway, her and her friends do wishes, and then she thinks that her wishes got switched with this guy's wishes. So it's like this whole kind of like comedy thing where you're trying to get the wishes back. It was funny. I don't know. I just wasn't the age range to like the main character very much. Well, she was fine. I did like the way that it ended with the friends a little bit. It was just fine. So 3.5 stars. I would probably give it to my sister to read, but I don't think she'd love it because she's out of that age range too. So then I listened to, if not my favorite book this month, one of my favorite books this month, and it's called Disney High: The Untold Story of the Rise and Fall of Disney High by Ashley Spencer. And I ended up rating this 5 stars. It does have swearing in it and mention of child abuse, but this is a true story, so to me that doesn't bother me quite as much, but it still bothers me. This is a real story of like the child actors in the Disney shows, the Disney Channel shows, and it talks about like, you know, the obvious ones, like I was gonna say Britney Spears, that's so wrong. Miley Cyrus, what's her name, who played, I just realized I don't know these names quite as well as I thought I did. I was so confident and now I'm not. I think it talks about like Good Luck Charlie a little bit, maybe. No, that was something else I was watching that talked about Good Luck Charlie. I have so many things I watch that talk about Disney Channel because I'm fascinated with it. But anyway, it talks about like the actors and the stuff that they went through, like the Jonas Brothers. There we go, there's another one I remembered. Demi Lovato. That's what I was thinking of. And I was also thinking of the first one. What is her name? She's on the Lizzie McGuire. Don't remember the girl who played Lizzie McGuire, but her. I was gonna say Lizzie Alpine, but that is so wrong. That is not even an actor, I think. Anyway, it talked about them and their lives growing up, and it was fascinating, and I really want this author to write more. I highly recommend this one. This one was so interesting to listen because I listened to Defunct Land and what was the other one that talked about Disney Channel? Yesterworld, I think is what her name was. Know what his name was? But they talk about just like Disney Channel shows and Disney as it goes, as like it progressed and like the history behind it and like the politics in there. And it was so interesting to listen to this audiobook, having this background of all these random YouTube videos I've watched and like kind of knowing stuff and knowing some of the names, and then listening to this book that was like real interviews with these characters and these people, not characters, but the actors, and with the people like the set designers, and I think they got like an interview with a pretty high up ranking official, and it's so interesting to listen to these people. And it was voiced by the little girl who played the best friend in the Lizzie McGuire show, so it's one of the actors, and it was such a good audiobook. I really enjoyed it. And I actually messaged the author, I left a review on Goodreads and I said, love this book if the author ever wants to write like a sequel, because she said she has a lot more research that she didn't fit in this book because it was like an 11-hour audiobook, and she said she had more research that just like couldn't fit in there. So I was like, hey, if you ever want to write another book like that's a sequel or that's like taking place at the lesser known shows, like I would love to read it, and I would. Okay, I'm sorry my computer is loud and this is the only way to record audio and quickly insert it into the video, but I forgot to say something here. Why I brought up the whole thing about leaving a review is because the author actually responded to my comment on her review on her book on Goodreads, and she liked it. So I think that means that either she wants to do another book or she's doing another book, or at least she like appreciates other people wanting the book. So I have hopes for a sequel. That was the whole point of saying that, and I forgot to say it. really want to buy this book also, and I probably reread it and like mark it out, but it was just so interesting to me, and that one sparked me wanting to read more nonfiction, which I actually have bought quite a few more books after that and that are nonfiction to read at some point, and I'm very excited about it. But that was such a good book. I highly recommend that one, like quite a lot. Maybe if you're not, I probably rate it 16 maybe and above, or maybe 18 and above, because it does mention some pretty drugs and stuff, like child stuff that happens to children. Nothing in too depth. It's not like the Nickelodeon documentary Quiet on Set. Nothing as close to that. It talks more just about like the effects on the actors themselves rather than like the culture on, well, I guess it does. It's interesting. I enjoyed it. I want to read the I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy, because I think that one talks more about Nickelodeon, and be interesting to see the opposite side of like the spectrum. Anyway, really interesting. I really enjoyed that book. I can't even recommend it enough, but I recommend it with a caveat. So then I picked up The Girls of August by Anne Rivers Siddons, and I got this one from DI because it said The Girls of August and it's August, so I had to pick it up, right? No, I would have been fine not reading this. I rated it 1 star, although as I was toting this book around for like 3 days before I read it, I realized this was right around when Taylor gave her announcement that she was the life of the showgirl. She announced it, and she announced the color was orange, and so I was like, this is perfect because look, it's orange and then it has like the green. So I was like, oh, it's the perfect book to read right now. It was so boring, guys. This was like a mixture of, I'd say the closest thing to it is the We Were Liars. I watched the show. I haven't read the book. I don't know if I want to read the book. I watched the show, and this kind of follows that same vibe of where everyone has secrets and you're kind of trying to decipher them and you're on an island, and it's like this summertime kind of a thing. But it follows the most unlikable characters in existence and the worst representation of ADHD I have seen in my life, and it was boring, and anytime happened to a character, I was like, okay, we're doing this now. Like, nothing had any consequences on the plot, like, and then they just like imply that when the book's done that like everyone kind of is in a horrible, terrible, rotten place in their life except the main character. She gets what she wants, but every other character, terrible, bad. Like, what was the point of this book? Like, none of them were bad characters either. It was just like there was no enemy. That's it. That's it all. Like, it was so boring. I don't even want to tell you anything about this book because I don't want you to read it. So there you go. Then I read Wednesdays in the Tower by Jessica Day George. This is the second book in the Tuesdays in the Castle series, and I read the first book like a while ago, actually, like a long time ago. Not quite a year ago, but no, it was a year ago. It was more than a year ago. I read it on vacation, and it was like the perfect time to read it. It was such a cute book, and I wanted to read the second one, and it was so good. I really enjoyed it. I don't want to say anything because it'll like ruin stuff, but it happens after the events of the first book. The first book follows this girl. She's a princess, and she lives in a tower. Not in a tower. She lives in a castle, and the castle is constantly moving. And it has like moving rooms, and the rooms will change and be in different places, and so will like the staircases, and like everything is random. Different closets will pop up at sometimes. Like, it is so interesting and cool, and I really like the idea of it. And this girl, she likes to just discover things about the castle, and the castle likes her, and so the castle will like listen to her basically and like let her know where things are and move stuff around for her. It's really interesting. It's really cute. I like this book quite a lot. And then I think in this one there's like an antagonist who comes and is like trying to hurt the castle for some reason, and I can't remember the rest of it. But the second book follows like after those events, but it's not like as tied to it as I thought. I think it'll tie in later because I think there's 5 books in the series, so there's 3 more where I think other things are gonna happen. But I really liked it. I really enjoyed this series. I would recommend it for slightly younger than me. I do enjoy it because I enjoy the author, but I think it's more probably middle to YA range for people, but it's a good book. I really enjoy it. I rated Wednesdays in the Tower 4 stars. Then, because I had the nonfiction bug, I ended up picking up The Princess Diarist by Carrie Fisher. I didn't end up reading it because it's a real true life story. I think I just wrote Poor Girl because it talks about her on the set. If you don't know, Carrie Fisher played Princess Leia. It talks about her on the set of the first Star Wars movie and the affair she had with Harrison Ford. And basically her justification for writing this book was basically like, well, I didn't want anyone after I died to come out and be like, she had an affair with Harrison Ford, and like use it to slander me, so I might as well just talk about it open and honestly. And I guess she also was like low on money, and so she just would write books and people would buy them because it's Carrie Fisher, and so it was like kind of money grab, and she kind of admitted to that. Her life was just so hard. It was so hard to read this book because she just had these like horrible things going on like her family life and her mom. She had like addictions to so many things, and she just was openly admitted to it. She was like, yeah, this was happening to me. Like, it was pretty bad. She wouldn't be like, my life was terrible and you should pity me. She was just like, yeah, it happened, like that's life, right? Like everyone goes through that. And I'm like, no girl, not everyone goes through that. It was bizarre and it was so sad, and I don't know what to think about it or if I even want to keep the book. But it was a book and I can't recommend it because it was sad, but like if you want to know more about it, you can read it. It also includes like some of her journals from when she was that age. Like they wrote it down. I think they took some pictures of it, and that's like the end pages. And it was so interesting to read like a girl who's around my age and just what she was going through and the poetry she wrote. The poetry that's like probably better than my poetry. It was just, it's so interesting. It's so interesting. But I don't even really have words. Like I just feel bad for her, but I don't think she wants you to feel bad for her. So it's a weird feeling. Anyway, I'm gonna keep reading nonfiction. I'm very intrigued. All right, then I ended up listening to The Hollow City by Dan Wells. I ended up rating this one 4.5 stars. This one is almost a psychological thriller mystery. A main character went through this horrible traumatic thing, and he believes that there are people with no faces that are chasing after him and trying to find him, and it's this whole conspiracy just after him. And the book starts with him in the hospital waking up, and he has no memory of what happened in the last 2 weeks. And the book follows him as they like try to help him figure out, and he's like determined that they're wrong. I'm not gonna tell you like the twist, but I will say it's a very, very, very good representation of the mental disorder that it's talking about. I don't want to ruin it because it was a really interesting book and I recommend reading it. It was a very weird thing to read and try to figure out what's real and what's not. It was bizarre, and I love Dan Wells. It's not my favorite one of all of his books because the ending didn't hit quite as hard as I wanted it to, but it was very interesting, and I think if I ever decided to reread it, I would enjoy it more. But it was a really good book. I highly recommend Dan Wells books, but not for the faint of heart. They're very gruesome and weird and gross. So just saying that. Then I read Meet Your Match by Stephanie Fowers, and I ended up rating this one 3.5 stars because it was funny sometimes, but it was written really poorly. Like, I am not a huge snob when it comes to that sort of a thing, but I am a snob a little bit. But this was like bad because it just didn't make sense. Like sometimes I'd read all the way to the end of the page, turn the page, read it, it would not make sense in context, like at all. I would not understand what's going on, and I'd be like, did I skip a page? Like what's going on? I have to reread that one and figure out what was going on because it just would make no sense. Like from one paragraph to the next without the context, it was so confusing because you kind of skip around a little bit in time, and the main character was a little bit unlikable, but it was in a rom-com way. Basically, the premise of this is this girl is in the singles ward, and she's been in the singles ward forever, and there was this boy that she really, really liked, and then he dumped her. And now she's just like heartbroken, and she's been on all these dates with all these guys, and she just doesn't like any of them. She doesn't want them to keep following her around, so she's trying to make them go away. Like the premise of the book is like she enters into this bet, but the bet is like at least this far into the book. Like it's not an immediate book kind of a thing, so I wouldn't even tell you what it was. Okay, it's literally 100 pages in where the bet takes place. So yeah, it's like not within the first bit of the book, like as setup. It's like way in there, so it doesn't really feel like it's a huge part of the plot, funnily enough. Anyway, but it basically follows this girl as she discovers who she's really in love with. And it is kind of annoying. I did like her love interest, and I did like when they got together, and I liked the hijinks that got them together. But there was a lot of random stuff, because this book takes place in my church also. There's a lot of random stuff that is not part of my faith, really. And it's very much a era of the times. I think this was written in like 2008 or something like that. 2007, yeah. So this is very much an era of the times kind of a thing, because the singles ward is nothing like this anymore. It was cringy a little bit, but it was cute. That's why I rated it 3.5 stars, because I was just like in the middle of the road. I was like, I have no idea what to rate this. Like, I liked it, but I didn't like parts of it. So anyway, I wouldn't highly recommend this book, but if you wanted a rom-com, maybe. It was clean, but the writing wasn't great. I think if the writing was better, I'd rate it higher, but it was just kind of confusing to read. So I don't know. Anyway, then I read Prom and Prejudice by Elizabeth Eulberg. If you can't tell, this is a twist on Pride and Prejudice. It was so bad. So miserably horrible this book was. It's 1 star. It was so horrible. It was so boring, because normally when you read these sort of things, they like take the book and they interpret it into the setting. This takes place as it's in like a boarding school, and it has the main character, and she's Lizzie Bennet, obviously, and then her roommate is Jane, and then Jane's younger sister is Lydia, and then there's Jane's crush, who's Charles Bingley, and then his friend, which is Darcy, and Wickham is this boy from the boarding school that tried to, you know, I think it's implied that it was assaulting his younger sister, Darcy's younger sister. So she likes Wickham. It's like this, it's so boring because it's literally just Pride and Prejudice. So you're just reading it thinking, okay, now the next, yep, that's the next scene, yep, that's the next scene, Pride, yep. But there's nothing interesting. The only interesting part that they did in this book was you actually see Darcy confront Wickham. And at that point I was awake. I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like, I'm interested. And then after that, boring, done, so annoyed. And then they try to like change the ending a little bit to make it more interesting, but it was horrible. It was so boring. I hated it. And the worst part was you go through the whole book because you know who Charlotte is, you know who like Bingley's sister is. I think they get rid of his second sister. So they have Caroline, but they don't have the younger sister who's already married. They don't have her in the book. And you just go through this whole book thinking like, where are her parents? Where are the rest of the siblings? Because there's Kitty and Mary, right? That you don't see them at all. They show up. Let me find it. I'm gonna find it. Right here. This is page 215. Can you see how far through the book we are? It finally mentions them, Mary and Kitty. And that made me so mad. I'm like, what was the point of even putting them in the book this late in the book? Like, they're inconsequential character. Like, ugh. It was so horrible. I hated it. I don't recommend this book. It's not even good for younger children. Like, anyone who has this sense, who has read this book, like Pride and Prejudice before, would think this is horrible. Like, no matter what age you are. Even if you have never read Pride and Prejudice before, okay, maybe then you might enjoy it. But still, was horrible. I don't recommend it. Just read the real book. All right, and then the final two books that I read this month were The Queen's Gambit and The Ruby Prince by Beth Brower. And they're in a series, so I'm talking about them together. Both 5 stars. Fantastic, wonderful, amazing books. I have read the third book. I literally read it the next day because I read these books the very last day of the month because I remembered that I wanted to read The Queen's Gambit this month and it was on my TBR. So I was like, oh, I might as well start it. You know, there's no harm. Binged it in a day. And then The Ruby Prince, I binged it. Like, I think I stayed up till midnight finishing it. I think it was like maybe after midnight, so like Goodreads logged it as the next day, but I changed it because I was like, nah, I stayed up late to read this. I read it that day. They were so good. But I might start crying because they're so sad. Like, it literally took my heart and went when I was reading that series. Like, it follows a queen. Her name is Eleanor. It follows Eleanor, the queen of this small country that has received a notice from a neighboring king that they're going to be taken over. There's going to be a war and they can either surrender and become a vassal, like vassal kingdom to there, and they would have really high taxes, or they can fight. But they have such a small country that fighting is literally going to do nothing. And so it follows the queen as she's struggling to prepare her citizens to figure out what to do and handle this like crippling guilt of being like, all right, we're going to fight them. Like, I don't want y'all to have to like, it's like either half her country dies to fight for their freedom or all of her country starves because they're giving all their food to the other kingdom. So it's like, there's no good option here. There's no good option here. And so the first book ends like at the end of this last really big encounter, and then the second book follows like what happens after that, and then the third book kind of sums it all up, and it's a wonderful ending. But this is the type of series where you desperately want these characters to be happy, and you can't have them be happy because the second they're happy, literally the page that they're happy, that's when it ends. That's the last book. That's the last scene. That's it. They're happy for 5 seconds. Yeah, I'm literally crying. I wondered if this was gonna happen. Anyway, it's a good series. I recommend it. It's also a love story. I don't want to ruin who the love interest is because obviously it's kind of really obvious from if you've read a book. This series is so interesting because it follows a lot of like typical fantasy tropes where a character shows up and you're like, yeah, I know who you are and what you're from and what you're doing. Like, it understands. But there were a couple things that I was genuinely shocked by, like what happened. And this series is similar to some of Dan Wells' series that I've read where the consequences are consequences. Like, characters die, like they're dead, like people die. Obviously there's a little bit of main character plot armor, but like other than that, characters are dead, like they're gone, and it's just horrifying. Like, it's like the real consequences of war and what happens, and it's so sad. It's not a happy series like at all, but I loved it and I will definitely reread it. And Beth Brower, she's officially one of my new favorite authors. I told myself I couldn't tell myself that she was my favorite author until I read something other than her Emma M. Lyon series, because what if her Emma M. Lyon series is like a one-off and it's like fantastic because it is just the way that it is and it's amazing. But no, I just love her and her writing, and she has 2 more books that I haven't read yet, and I'm kind of saving them for a rainy day, like if I'm really sad, because I know at this point her writing is just gonna be a 5-star to me. So I'm gonna end this video because I'm about to cry about these fictional characters that don't exist and their sad lives. And yeah, so I really recommend Beth Brower, and I recommend Disney High. I don't know if I can recommend most anything else I read this month, but thank you for reading reading. Thank you for listening to me talk about what I've read this month. It was fun, as always. I was in a little bit of a slump this month. I think this is the least amount of books I've read all year long, which is crazy to say because it's literally 16 books. Like, I think a couple years ago, it was hard to read 16 books in a year, so I've come a long way. Why is my hand itchy? Please don't be bitten by something. Oh, I was. Ugh, there's so many bugs. We're finally getting rain here, and it's so nice. It's lovely, but it makes my lighting a little bit bad, so if it's a little bit, like, yellowy, it's because I'm relying on my lamps. So I will see you. Hopefully I'm gonna do a TBR video. I might film that later, but we'll see. Anyway, I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.